Hello, my name is Retromoviegirl, and today I have another Audible audiobook review for you. And this time is The Preacher's Replacement Bride. It's by George McVeigh, and it's book 1 of the Bride of Sanctuary series. What it has to do with this time is the preacher of this town, of this church in Sanctuary, needs a bride. So they come up with this, this letter writing, mail order bride letter writing campaign. And he gets in touch with a woman named Hattie, and the woman says, they start to correspond, and the woman says, actually, I have a friend with a similar name who would probably be more suitable for you to marry. So, after some time, the preacher says to the people that come there, we have these brides that are coming here to the church, and we want you to welcome them to Sanctuary. The preacher has gotten several, the community thinks because he's not married, it doesn't look very good for him to be ministering to young women, that he's not really, set up for marriage. He's a bachelor, and he's not really set up for marriage. So, what happens is, after the brides agree to come there, he gets enamored with a woman named Hattie. Not the same Hattie he was writing to, but I believe her name was spelled Hatte, and the other Hattie was spelled Hattie, I believe. But when the preacher finds this out, and Hattie is actually an indentured servant in a brothel. She's a kitchen worker. She doesn't work upstairs, but the whole reason that she even got involved in the mail order bride situation is because you would call him a pimp, I guess, informed her that as soon as her indenture was over, she would be asked to work upstairs or forced to work upstairs in the brothel's bedrooms. So since this is a Christian type book, she decides to escape and takes the fact that Hattie recommended, the first Hattie that Joshua, who's the name of the preacher, was writing to, said that she could come instead. The other Hattie was supposed to go too, but she unfortunately fell ill and died of a fever and wasn't able to come. In the meantime, Joshua, the preacher, has to deal with this annoying woman named Ernestine Lyman. She's actually the deacon's daughter, and she's taking it upon herself without any encouragement from the preacher or from her family. She's taking it upon herself to court the preacher, or somehow she's gotten it into her head that yes, she must marry the preacher, that she's the perfect person to marry the preacher, when in reality she's far from the giving Christian type wife who would help with the ladies' society and ministering to the poor. She'd much rather do vain, selfish acts rather than helping the poor and the sick and everybody who needs genuine help in the church or ministering to other people. She keeps inserting herself into Joshua's life and circle. She even goes to a party and slaps Hattie in the face because she believes that Hattie is taking away her fiance. Now keep in mind, Joshua has never, ever said anything to her that would indicate that he likes her or would like to court her or is in any way interested in making her his fiance. She just got it into her head that yes, she should be. And when Hattie comes along, Hattie kind of spoils those plans. But the preacher he has a bit of a past. He's a former like police officer. I forget what they call them. Texas Ranger. He's a former Texas Ranger. His family was murdered, and he spent some time getting justice and running around with the Texas Rangers trying to seek justice for his murdered family. And in the meantime, he runs into this person, Nugget Nate, which seems to have kind of like a calling. You also hear about him in book, I think it was book 2, the one with Glenn, the brother Glenn, and the difficulties that he went through with his wife, Virginia. You hear about them at the end of the story and in the middle of the story because Glenn originally arranged it so that Lila could come out and be his bride so they could get married, but unfortunately things didn't work out. But when I come back, I will have my favorite scene from the preacher's unexpected bride or replacement bride. So I'll see you in the next clip. Now here's my favorite scene from the story. The story basically swims right along. You have your times where you're not exactly sure what Ernestine Lyman is thinking, but by chapter 20 and other chapters leading up to chapter 20, I thought she was a little bit off because, like I said, Joshua had never given her any indication that he liked her or wanted to court her. He even turns down her picnic lunch that she brings to the church, saying that she should give it to the poor, and you know, or find someone less fortunate to give it to, or go clean somebody's house. And she's indignant, and she said, "Why would I want to do that?" Because the people that he suggested that she give it to were ill, and she didn't want to catch whatever illness they had. I think they had the flu. But by chapter 20, this is where it gets a little interesting, because they're all in the church, and he is going through. It is a scripturally based story, because it is a Christian based story. It's a scripturally based story. So he's going through scripture, and he's talking about temptation and how much he'd like to marry Hattie to avoid the temptation outside of marriage. And he actually asked Hattie to marry him in this chapter. And everyone in the church, before he could even open his mouth, everyone in the church turns to look at Ernestine Lyman, because, like I said, she had already inserted herself into the preacher's inner circle without the preacher's permission. The preacher wants nothing to do with her. She's ill-suited to him because she's not like a really giving wife. She wouldn't be the type that would want to help the preacher. She's selfish. So she turns around and says, "No, you can't do this. You cannot allow this, all this blah, blah, blah." And she gives a couple of reasons why it cannot be allowed. For example, in an earlier chapter, Hattie is given a baby, and they name the baby Roseanne, and trying to escape from Ernestine Lyman's presence and get home to the place where the brides are staying so she can feed the baby. She inadvertently tells Ernestine Lyman that the baby is hers, but Ernestine Lyman misinterprets what that means and thinks that she's a woman of ill repute, actually calls her a prostitute in the church, and she's literally slapped by her father and told the truth that the baby was actually found in a stagecoach with its dead mother, and Hattie was given the baby on Friday voluntarily to take care of the baby until its family shows up. Its family does show up, but some of the story is it actually uses historical characters in a fictional way. Like, I think, the gambler, not Bat Matcherson, but the other one, Maverick, he says that the baby belongs to his sister who got in a family way, and he was supposed to take the baby to another location, another town, and give it to a family who couldn't have a baby. But he was going to do it for a fee, which means the baby would get sold or whatever. Now, Hattie objects to this and immediately wants to adopt the baby. But what happens before that is that Ernestine Lyman is told in a hurry that the baby is Hattie's, which is technically true. The baby is hers for the allotted time until the family shows up. But Ernestine Lyman takes it all out of context and thinks that the baby was conceived by Hattie in sin, and actually calls her out in the church. She's then corrected by her father and told that he found the baby in the stagecoach with its dead mother, and that Hattie has done everything that she can to make the baby feel comfortable and to make sure that it has someone who can take care of it until the family members are found and the baby is returned, or they can arrange an adoption. But Ernestine Lyman thinks that Hattie specifically showed up so she can steal Joshua's affections and steal Ernestine Lyman's chances of getting married. None of that is true, because like I said earlier, Joshua's given no indication that he's interested in Ernestine Lyman. So Ernestine Lyman sends a telegram because this person, Papa John, has put in a newspaper that he's looking for his working girl with violet eyes. She had no business, and I mean no business, sending any telegrams to anyone to spread gossip or to poison or sin against Hattie or Joshua. If people don't want you, they don't want you. It's just that simple. But Ernestine Lyman kind of set it up to where it's an evil plan, to where these people can find her and possibly hurt her. And they actually send, after the whole scene with Ernestine and her father, which is in chapter 20, where he explains everything that went on, and he even says to her, don't you think if the preacher was going to send for anybody, it would be somebody that I wouldn't find out about? And it's just a whole mess, and she really gets her comeuppance about talking about people, about sinning against the church, about all that. She kind of gets a smackdown by her father. He literally slaps her in the church for her misbehavior and gossiping and possibly getting this young lady hurt because of her rumors and innuendos about what may or may not have happened with this baby that she all of a sudden has custody of. Ernestine Lyman is bitter, and she's just not a really nice person. She's not somebody that you would think that would be like the first lady of a church. She even sits up front where normally if Joshua had a wife before this, his wife would sit up front where the lady of the church is supposed to sit. But yeah, that was a scene that really struck me, you know, as wrong, because she's basically calling her a prostitute inside a church, inside a sacred place, all because she's pissed and bitter that the preacher doesn't want her. And the preacher has never indicated that he does. Maybe it would be like the deacons would say that you would have to marry, but they didn't say any specific person, let alone Ernestine Lyman, who is the most selfish person in the church's vicinity. He literally says, go give it to the poor or go help some other people. You know, how about, you know, you go do that instead of us having a picnic? And she refuses. So that's just a scene that really struck me. I went through the scene several times to make sure I heard what I heard, because it was just shocking. But it's a really nice book, and it shows what type of person Hattie is and how godly she is. And it's just a really nice, clean piece of fiction. If you want me to do more videos like this, just give this video a like and a thumbs up, a like and subscribe for more, and leave a comment. And you can find the book at Audible, on your Audible app, or you can find the book on your e-reader. Just search it up, or I'll put a link to it if I can find it.